Hey there, my amazing English learners. Welcome back to the American Lingo Academy. I'm Emily, and wow, do I have something special for you today? We're diving deep into essential phrases that will literally transform the way you speak English. I'm talking about those magical combinations of words that native speakers use every single day, and once you master them, your English is going to sound so much more natural and confident. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. Most English learners focus on grammar rules and vocabulary lists, right? But they completely miss these essential phrases that are the secret sauce to sounding like a native speaker. It's like trying to cook without knowing the basic recipes. You might have all the ingredients, but you don't know how to put them together. I learned this the hard way when I was teaching English in Japan. I had this student, Maria, who had perfect grammar. I mean, absolutely perfect. She could conjugate verbs like a machine and her vocabulary was incredible. But when she spoke, something was missing. She sounded robotic, formal, and honestly, a little awkward in conversations. Then one day, I taught her just 5 essential phrases. 5. And within 2 weeks, people were asking her if she had lived in America her whole life. That's the power of what we're talking about today, and I'm going to share every single secret with you. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's jump into the phrases that will make you sound like you've been speaking English your entire life. Trust me, by the end of this episode, you're going to have a completely different approach to learning English. Let's start with something that might surprise you. The most important phrase in English isn't "How are you?" or "Nice to meet you." It's actually, "You know what I mean." Now, you might be thinking, Emily, that's such a simple phrase. But here's why it's absolutely brilliant. When you say, "You know what I mean," you're doing 3 things at once. First, you're checking if the other person understands you. Second, you're involving them in the conversation. And third, you're buying yourself time to think about what to say next. I remember when I first moved to New York, I was at a coffee shop trying to explain to the barista that I wanted my coffee not too hot, but not lukewarm either. I was struggling to find the perfect words, and then I just said, "You know what I mean." And boom. The barista smiled and said, "Oh, you want it just right for drinking." That phrase saved me from a really awkward moment. But here's the secret most people don't know. You can use this phrase to connect with anyone, anywhere. It works in business meetings, casual conversations, even when you're talking to your neighbor. It's like a universal bridge that connects your thoughts to other people's understanding. Now, let me share the second game-changing phrase that will make you sound incredibly natural. Are you ready? I was just thinking. Oh my goodness, this phrase is pure gold. When you start a sentence with "I was just thinking," you immediately sound thoughtful, engaged, and natural. It's not aggressive, it's not pushy, it's just conversational. Here's how Americans use it every single day. I was just thinking, maybe we should try that new restaurant. I was just thinking about what you said yesterday. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could travel to Mars? The beauty of this phrase is that it makes your ideas sound spontaneous and genuine. Instead of saying, "I think we should do this," which can sound demanding, you say, "I was just thinking maybe we could do this." Do you hear the difference? It's softer, more collaborative, more American. I taught this phrase to my student Carlos, and he told me it completely changed his experience at work. Before, when he had suggestions in meetings, people would kind of ignore him. But when he started saying, "I was just thinking," suddenly everyone was listening and engaging with his ideas. Same ideas, different phrase, completely different results. But wait, there's more. The third essential phrase that will blow your mind is, "That's a good point." Now, you might think this is just about agreeing with someone, but it's so much deeper than that. When you say, "That's a good point," you're showing that you're actively listening, you value other people's opinions, and you're engaged in the conversation. These are all qualities that Americans absolutely love in communication. Here's a story that will show you exactly what I mean. I was at a dinner party last month, and there was this guy who kept interrupting everyone and always had to be right. Everyone was getting annoyed with him. Then there was this other person who, every time someone shared an idea, would say something like, "That's a good point," or "I hadn't thought of it that way." Guess who everyone wanted to talk to? Guess who everyone remembered positively? The person who used these phrases didn't necessarily have the most interesting stories or the funniest jokes, but they made everyone feel heard and valued. That's the power of essential phrases. And here's a pro tip. You don't have to completely agree with someone to say, "That's a good point." You're just acknowledging that they've contributed something worth considering. It's respectful, it's engaging, and it keeps conversations flowing naturally. Now, let's talk about the fourth phrase that will make you sound like you've been speaking English forever. This one is, "I couldn't agree more." Oh, this phrase is fantastic. It's so much more powerful than just saying yes or "I agree." When you say, "I couldn't agree more," you're showing enthusiasm, you're emphasizing your agreement, and you're adding energy to the conversation. Americans use this phrase when they really want to show strong agreement. "I couldn't agree more" means you're not just agreeing, you're excited about agreeing. It's like the difference between a handshake and a high five. Here's when you use it. Someone says, "I think learning English is challenging but so rewarding." You respond, "I couldn't agree more, every breakthrough feels amazing." Or someone says, "Good communication is the key to success." You say, "I couldn't agree more." It opens so many doors. I had a student, Jennifer, who was preparing for job interviews. She was qualified, smart, and prepared, but she kept getting rejected. We worked on her interview skills, and I taught her this phrase along with a few others. In her next interview, when the interviewer said, "We value team players who can adapt quickly," she responded, "I couldn't agree more." Flexibility and collaboration are essential in today's workplace. She got the job, and later, the interviewer told her that her enthusiasm and communication style were major factors in their decision. The fifth phrase that will revolutionize your English is, "Let me think about that." This phrase is absolutely brilliant because it does something that many English learners struggle with. It buys you time. Instead of panicking when someone asks you a difficult question, instead of saying, "I don't know," or just standing there silently, you say, "Let me think about that." But here's the secret. This phrase makes you sound thoughtful and careful, not confused or unprepared. Americans respect people who take time to consider their responses. It shows wisdom, not weakness. I use this phrase all the time. Someone asks me a complex question about English grammar, and I say, "Let me think about that for a moment." Then I take a few seconds to organize my thoughts, and I give a much better answer than if I had rushed to respond immediately. You can also use variations like, "That's a great question, let me think about that," or let me think about the best way to explain that." It's natural, it's professional, and it gives you the space you need to communicate effectively. Now, here's the sixth phrase that will make you sound incredibly natural. "I see what you're saying." This phrase is amazing because it shows that you're not just hearing words, you're understanding the meaning behind them. It's deeper than "I understand" and more engaging than just nodding your head. When someone explains something complicated and you say, "I see what you're saying," you're showing that you've processed their information and you get the bigger picture. Americans love this because it confirms that communication is actually happening. You can use it in so many situations. Your boss explains a new project. "I see what you're saying. We need to focus on customer satisfaction first." A friend tells you about a problem. "I see what you're saying. It's not just about the money, it's about feeling valued." The seventh phrase that will transform your conversations is, "That reminds me of." Oh, this phrase is pure conversational gold. When you say, "That reminds me of," you're connecting what someone just said to your own experience or knowledge. This is exactly how native speakers keep conversations flowing naturally. Americans love when you relate to their stories and experiences. It shows you're engaged, you're thinking about what they're saying, and you have your own perspectives to share. "That reminds me of when I first moved to this country," or "That reminds me of something I read about that topic." Here's what's beautiful about this phrase. It's a natural bridge from their story to your story, from their experience to your experience. Conversations become less like interviews and more like real exchanges of ideas and experiences. The eighth phrase that will make you sound like a native speaker is, "I was wondering if." This phrase is so much more polite and natural than direct requests. Instead of saying, "Can you help me?" you say, "I was wondering if you could help me with something." Instead of, "Do you want to go to lunch?" you say, "I was wondering if you'd like to grab lunch together." The phrase, "I was wondering if," makes requests sound gentle and considerate. It's not demanding, it's not pushy, it's just nice. And Americans really appreciate this kind of thoughtful communication. I remember teaching this to my student Ahmed, who was having trouble making friends at his university. He was being too direct in his invitations, which made people uncomfortable. When he started using, "I was wondering if," everything changed. "I was wondering if you'd like to study together sometime," sounds so much more inviting than "Do you want to study with me?" The ninth phrase that will elevate your English is, "I appreciate you." Now, most people know how to say thank you, but "I appreciate you" is so much more powerful. When you say, "I appreciate you taking the time to explain this," or "I appreciate you being so patient with me," you're thanking the person, not just the action. This phrase makes people feel valued as individuals, not just as service providers. It's personal, it's warm, and it creates real connections. Americans especially love this because it acknowledges their effort and consideration. I use this phrase with my students all the time. "I appreciate you asking such thoughtful questions," or "I appreciate you sharing your experience with the class." And you know what? It makes them feel confident and valued, which helps them learn better and participate more actively. The 10th phrase that will make you sound incredibly natural is, "Speaking of which." This phrase is perfect for changing topics smoothly in conversations. Instead of abruptly switching subjects, you use "speaking of which" to connect ideas naturally. For example, you're talking about restaurants and you want to mention your cooking class. You say, "Speaking of which, I just started taking cooking classes." Or you're discussing work stress and you want to talk about weekend plans. "Speaking of which, I'm really looking forward to relaxing this weekend." This phrase shows that you're thinking about the conversation holistically, making connections between different topics. It's sophisticated and natural, exactly how native speakers navigate conversations. Now, let me share 3 power phrases that will make you sound confident and professional in any situation. First, "I'd be happy to." This phrase is so much better than "I can" or "I will." When you say, "I'd be happy to help you with that project," or "I'd be happy to explain that again," you're showing enthusiasm and willingness. It's positive, it's professional, and it makes people want to work with you. Second, "I'm curious about." This phrase is perfect for asking questions without sounding intrusive. "I'm curious about your experience with that company," or "I'm curious about how you learned to speak English so well." It shows genuine interest while being respectful. Third, "I have a feeling that." This phrase lets you share intuitions or predictions in a humble way. "I have a feeling this project is going to be really successful," or "I have a feeling you're going to love this restaurant." It's confident but not arrogant. Here's something really important I want you to understand. These phrases aren't just about sounding American. They're about communicating more effectively, building better relationships, and expressing yourself more naturally in English. When I first started teaching, I thought language learning was all about grammar rules and vocabulary lists. But after working with thousands of students from all over the world, I realized that the students who succeeded fastest were the ones who mastered these essential phrases. They could make friends more easily, they felt more confident in business meetings, they enjoyed conversations more, and people responded to them more positively. That's because these phrases tap into something deeper than just language. They tap into human connection. Let me tell you about my student Anna from Brazil. When she first came to my classes, she was technically proficient in English, but she felt like she was always on the outside of conversations. She understood everything, but she couldn't participate naturally. We spent just 1 month focusing on essential phrases like the ones I'm sharing with you today, and the transformation was incredible. She went from being a passive observer in conversations to being someone people actively sought out to talk with. 6 months later, she was promoted to a management position at her company. A year later, she was leading international projects. The same person, the same technical skills, but now she had the communication tools to connect with people effectively. Now, let me give you some practical tips for mastering these phrases. First, don't try to memorize all of them at once. Pick 3 or 4 phrases that feel natural to you and practice using them in real conversations this week. Once they become automatic, add a few more. Second, pay attention to the situations where native speakers use these phrases. Watch American movies, listen to podcasts, observe conversations around you. You'll start noticing these phrases everywhere. Third, practice the pronunciation and intonation. It's not just about the words, it's about how you say them. "I couldn't agree more" should sound enthusiastic. Let me think about that should sound thoughtful. The emotion behind the phrase is just as important as the words themselves. Fourth, don't be afraid to use them even if they feel awkward at first. Every native speaker went through a phase of learning these phrases. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become. Here's a challenge I want to give you. This week, I want you to use at least 3 of these phrases every day. Start a conversation with "I was just thinking." Use "that's a good point" when someone shares an idea. End a conversation with "I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me." And here's what's going to happen. People are going to respond to you differently. They're going to see you as more engaged, more thoughtful, more confident. Your English is going to feel more natural, more flowing, more American. But remember, the goal isn't just to sound American. The goal is to communicate more effectively, to connect with people more easily, and to express yourself more confidently in English. These phrases are tools, and like any tools, they're most effective when you use them authentically. Don't just memorize them and repeat them mechanically. Think about what they mean, understand when to use them, and make them part of your natural communication style. Now, I want to share one final story with you. Last month, I received an email from a student I taught 2 years ago. She's now working for an international company, leading teams across 3 different countries. She told me that the essential phrases we worked on together were more valuable than any grammar lesson she ever took. She said, "Emily, you taught me that English isn't just about being correct, it's about being connected. Those phrases didn't just improve my English, they improved my life." That's what I want for you. I want these phrases to open doors for you, to help you build relationships, to make you feel more confident and natural when you speak English. Before we wrap up, let me quickly review the essential phrases we covered today, because I want you to have them all in one place. You know what I mean. For connecting with others and checking understanding. "I was just thinking," for sharing ideas naturally and spontaneously. "That's a good point," for showing you're listening and valuing others' contributions. "I couldn't agree more," for expressing strong, enthusiastic agreement. "Let me think about that," for buying time and showing thoughtfulness. "I see what you're saying," for demonstrating understanding beyond just hearing. "That reminds me of," for connecting experiences and keeping conversations flowing. "I was wondering if," for making polite, gentle requests. "I appreciate you," for thanking people personally, not just their actions. "Speaking of which," for smoothly transitioning between topics. And our 3 power phrases. "I'd be happy to," "I'm curious about," and "I have a feeling that." Each of these phrases serves a specific purpose in communication, but together, they create a foundation for natural, confident, engaging conversation in English. Here's your homework for this week, and I really want you to take this seriously because it's going to make a huge difference in your English journey. Choose 5 phrases from today's list that feel most natural to you. Write them down somewhere you'll see them every day. Then, make a commitment to use at least one of these phrases in every conversation you have this week. Pay attention to how people respond when you use them. Notice how they make you feel more connected to the conversation. Observe how they help you express yourself more naturally. And here's the most important part. Don't judge yourself if they feel awkward at first. Every native speaker had to learn these phrases at some point. The difference is, they learned them as children through constant exposure and practice. You're learning them as an adult through conscious effort and application. Be patient with yourself, be consistent with your practice, and trust the process. I've seen thousands of students transform their English using exactly these techniques, and I know you can do it too. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below this video, and tell me which phrase you're most excited to try this week. Share your experiences, ask questions, and let's build a community of English learners who support each other's growth. If this episode was helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the American Lingo Academy channel. We release new episodes every week, covering everything from pronunciation tips to cultural insights that will help you master American English. And remember, learning English isn't just about memorizing rules and vocabulary. It's about developing the confidence to express yourself, the skills to connect with others, and the tools to achieve your goals in an English-speaking world. These essential phrases are your foundation. Build on them, practice them, make them your own, and watch as your English transforms from technically correct to naturally confident. Until next time, keep practicing, keep growing, and remember, you've got this. Your English journey is unique, your progress is real, and every conversation is an opportunity to improve. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I'm Emily from the American Lingo Academy, and I'll see you in the next episode where we're going to dive deep into the secret pronunciation patterns that make American English sound so smooth and natural. Take care and happy learning.